The vampire. Stories of vampires go back to some of our earliest still tellable stories, and inasmuch we have to wonder if the idea of the vampire harkens back to something even more ancient than that. How long has this idea of the vampire been with us? One of my favorite things about horror, one of my favorite things about science fiction, is the fact that the metaphor of the text is normally central to its telling. So if you're telling a story about an alien invasion, the more clear metaphor to that idea is, well, if we went and we conquered other civilizations that were less technologically advanced than are we, what would happen if that happened to us? What was that like at the time? And so with something like horror fiction, something like a vampire, that metaphor is still central to the storytelling process, and we have to ask, what is it that the vampire itself represents? Welcome to Strip Cover Lit, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I'm Adrian Fort, and we're here for another poetry discussion, which will appear in 3 different playlists here on the channel. Number 1 being the Poetry Discussion playlist, a playlist now over 800 videos strong. Number 2 being the Classic Haunts playlist, a playlist of videos talking about literature leading up to Halloween of 2025. And number 3 being the Horror Genre playlist, a playlist of videos dedicated to exploring the central literary themes of horror literature. The poem in question today is known as The Vampire by Rudyard Kipling, and it reads as such. A fool there was, and he made his prayer, even as you or I, to a rag and a bone and a hank of hair. We called her the woman who did not care, but the fool he called her his lady fair, even as you or I. Oh, the years we waste and the tears we waste, and the work of our head and hand belonged to the woman who did not know, and now we know that she never could know, and did not understand. A fool there was, and his goods he spent, even as you or I, honor and faith and a sure intent, and it wasn't the least what the lady meant. But a fool must follow his natural bent, even as you or I. Oh, the toil we lost and the spoil we lost, and the excellent things we planned belonged to the woman who didn't know why, and now we know that she never knew why, and did not understand. The fool was stripped to his foolish hide, even as you or I, which she might have seen when she threw him aside, but it wasn't on record the lady tried. So some of him lived, but the most of him died, even as you or I. And it isn't the shame, and it isn't the blame that stings like a white-hot brand. It's coming to know that she never knew why, seeing at last she could never know why, and never could understand. This poem from Rudyard Kipling, it was written in response to a painting that he had seen, a painting that we have right here. The vampire. What is a vampire? It is one who drains us of our life essence. Often in literature, this is represented through blood. But symbolically, what is blood? More than DNA, because DNA was not yet known to exist, blood was seen as that which we inherited from our parents. It was seen as your lineage. Your life force, your essence, was represented by your blood. This poem in particular was a lot of the conversation around this poem circles around something. So this poem was published in 1897. This poem is often discussed in relation to something called the New Woman phenomenon. But don't worry, we're not going to make this a gendered argument. There's just a larger argument around this, but I want to get through this in order to get to that. The New Woman, this is from Wikipedia, was a feminist ideal that emerged in the late 19th century and had a profound influence well into the 20th century. In 1894, writer Sarah Grand used the term New Woman in an influential article to refer to independent women seeking radical change, which sounds like a type of vocabulary term in itself, right? An acronym is in there somewhere. In response to the English writer Ouida, Maria Louisa Ramey used the term as the title of a follow-up article. The term was further popularized by British-American writer Henry James, who used it to describe the growth in the number of feminist, educated, independent career women in Europe and the United States. The New Woman pushed the limits set by a male-dominated society. Independence was not simply a matter of the mind. It also involved physical changes in activity and dress, as activities such as bicycling expanded women's ability to engage with a broader, more active world. But as we are here 100+ years later, part of this was also a sexual awakening. Part of this was a sexual independence, in addition to a gender independence. And this idea of the independent woman and the ramifications of an independent woman on society are really better boiled down to the ramifications of an independent woman on a man who is seeking a woman. And again, we're not going to stay here, but this is the argument presented, or the situation presented in the poem itself. So we're going to start here and broaden out. It is terrifying to be in a relationship with someone because you don't know their intent. This isn't gendered. It is represented here by a male writer about a woman, but it could be very easily represented by a female writer about men. You don't understand someone else's intent. There is an old phrase, everybody dies alone. Part of that, so no one's dying with you, even if you die at the same time, right? Part of that is the realization that everyone lives alone. You will never truly know anyone. No one will ever truly know you. All of those thoughts in your head, your darkest and most private thoughts, your most exuberant and private thoughts, they're yours. Do you even think or question about sharing them? Probably not. Your most latent impulses, your most hidden desires. Do you ever think about sharing those with someone? Have you ever? Those urges that you get in the middle of traffic. When that guy that cut you off, you know he's in his car texting on his cell phone and eating, and now you're stopped behind him. You should be in that place, not yours. Why don't you get out of the car and figure it out? Right? Those impulses, those urges. You're not the only one who has those. That is what is recognized in this type of paranoia. There could be someone out there having those very same thoughts, predatory thoughts, violent thoughts about you. What if that other person was the person with whom you are most intimate? That is the person with whom you lay down every night. That is the person you trust enough to sleep next to. So I said that these things were ancient. These stories go back to some of our earliest told, still tellable stories. Have you ever heard of Lilith? Lilith was assumed to be, in some Hebrew stories, the first woman. Not suitable. So we had to get to Eve. So this also from Wikipedia, just so that we have a little bit to talk about here. Lilith, also spelled Lilit, Lilitu, or Lilis, is a feminine figure in Mesopotamian and Jewish mythology. According to accounts from the Talmud, she is the first wife of Adam and a primordial she-demon. Lilith is cited as having been banished from the Garden of Eden for disobeying Adam. Here is something interesting. The first wife of Adam, which means that she was literally crafted by God himself. To sort of really put this into context of the quote-unquote new woman, this is someone who was formed first and foremost by God's own hands and still turned out to be a demon. Was forged from mud into the first wife of Adam and still was wayward. The stem Hebrew word from which Lilith is taken is in the biblical Hebrew in the book of Isaiah, though Lilith herself is not mentioned in any biblical text. See, this is something that is so that roils on the surface of interpersonal relations so often that it was something that was extracurricularly placed into religious belief. In late antiquity in Mandaean and Jewish sources from 500 AD onward. Now, Jewish sources start way before 500 AD, don't they? Lilith appears in Historialis, incantations incorporating a short mythic story in various concepts and localities that give partial descriptions of her. She is mentioned in the Babylonian Talmud, in the conflict of Adam and Eve with Satan as Adam's first wife, and in the Zohar, Leviticus 19, as a hot, fiery female who first cohabitated with man. Many rabbinic authorities, including I can never say that name. I can never say it. Maimonides and Menachem Meiri reject the existence of Lilith. The name Lilith seems related to the masculine Akkadian word Lilu, and its female variants Lilitu and Ardat Lili, the Lil root. The Lil root, not Lil Wayne, the root Lil is shared by the Hebrew word Lilit, appearing in Isaiah 34:14, which is thought to be a night bird. I can't say it. A night bird by modern scholars such as Judith M. Blair. In Mesopotamian religion, according to the cuneiform texts of Sumer, Assyria, and Babylonia, Lilu are a class of demonic spirits consisting of adolescents who died before they could bear children. Many have also connected her to Mesopotamian demon Lamashtu, who shares similar traits and a similar position in mythology to Lilith. So is this really a vampire? Well, she did not feed on the blood of Adam. She fed on the life force of Adam. That is what the real root of a vampire is. Feeding on your life force. Feeding on those things which make you get up and live. And so I wanted to take this a step back from a gendered argument, from a battle of the sexes type argument, from this right here. This constant refrain, even as you or I, said constantly throughout this poem, is telling us, the reader, that, yeah, we can look at this fool and say that he is a fool because he spent his goods. But you or I would do that too. If you or I had this hubba hubba lover, and we hubba hubba loved her, or him, then yeah, we would spend our goods on them as well. But a fool must follow his natural bent, even as you or I. So I think that the real sort of lesson here is that there are people who will do this. There are vampires in the world. They might not suck your blood, but they will drain your life force. How do you protect yourself against that? Is there any protecting yourself against that? Rudyard Kipling seems to think not. Because this person, the subject of this poem, may be a fool, but he's only doing things that you or I might as well. The idea of the vampire walking among us, the vampire who is indistinguishable from those that you may fall for. This is part of the mythos of the vampire. In today's culture, the vampire is seen as kind of sexy, right? Is seen as alluring, right? This goes way back to Dracula. This goes way back before Dracula. Remember, if Lilith was Adam's first wife, that meant something. That meant that he was laying with Lilith. That means he was intimate with Lilith. Lilith was not Adam's first co-worker. Lilith was not Adam's first crush on his walk to the job. Lilith was not Adam's playmate as a child. Lilith was Adam's first wife, draining his life force and having to be cast out from the garden for her demonic ways. The idea of the vampire is the idea of someone who will drain you from your life essence. And you will not recognize that while it's happening. You will be asleep. You will be sleeping to the possibility that this individual is in fact draining the life that you had hoped to be building with them. That is all I have for this poetry discussion. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other literature lovers. If you find yourself here by chance but not design, literature is the only thing I talk about on this channel, dropping multiple videos every single week. There's poetry every Monday, and as always, I hope to have you back for the next one.